everybody. Happy Thursday, July 25th, 2024. It's been a minute since we've came live for all you Chi fam. So, right now, so far, it's just me. Lisa is away this week. Charles should be coming on. Oh, there he is right there. I was just talking about you, man.
What?
I
Talking about me?
was just talking about you behind your back, man.
Hmm.
But yeah, no Lisa this week, so it's just the two of us, just the guys hanging out. Um, but we got some stuff we want to talk to you guys about though. Charles is gonna go over some maintenance stuff with y'all. You guys all seem to like that. Um, I'm gonna go over some market data and then some other topics as well. And hopefully we could get the ball rolling. How's your week so far, man?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Really glad that this heat's going to settle down here in a bit. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Where you been? Like you're definitely not hanging out where I'm hanging out at then. It's still hot.
No, going to settle down. If you look, Friday, Saturday, it's going to be in the low mid to 80s. That's going to be nice. And
That
when you
would
say
be nice.
nice, it's still hot, but it ain't 107 hot.
Yeah. I know, man. Kids are really going back to school. Summer came by
Yeah.
so short this year.
My son was just saying that yesterday. He's like, "Man, where'd the summer go?" And I'm like, "You sat it away in front of your video games."
Yeah, you. I was telling my son that 'cause my son sleeps a lot. Because my son has this theory that if he sleeps a lot, he's gonna get tall. And I'm like, look at mom and dad. We're not that tall. You got genes. Genes override or supersede everything. So he's been sleeping his summer away, man. Um, how's how's moving your mom's house and all that?
It's working. It's definitely it's a lot, but no, it's working. Um, I don't know. I procrastinated way too long, so it's definitely kind of down to the wire. But I'm gonna get it done.
Cool. Just hold on to those shelves for me, all right?
Got that.
Okay. Let me just share my screen real quick so we can go over some data and then we can talk about maintenance. All right. There it is, the famous chart. Inventory is on the rise, Charles.
Mm.
Inventory. Um, so it is up. Inventory is up by 2% from last week. New listings is down 13% this week. That's a lot. Sold homes didn't change. Pending homes are up 20% this week. That's good. Inventory for the month over month, it is up this month 6.4%. New listings is up 1% this month. But sold home was down 1.9% this month. Pending homes are up 7% this month. But this time last year, just comparing inventory this year is a lot more, 52% higher. New listings are also more, 28% higher. Sold home is higher too, 4%. Pending home is also up, 24%. That's good to see. That's good to see. Have you been getting called a lot lately for inspections by other agents and all that?
Yeah, definitely.
Busy then, huh?
Hmm.
Are
Absolutely.
you did you just hire a new guy?
Yeah, actually, well, I didn't just hire. I hired him back in April, but basically, things have been pretty busy. I mean, it hasn't really slowed down since about February. It's been pretty steady. So, yeah, I mean, it's even with the market and the interest rates and the way everything is, I mean, it's been steady. I've been talking to some of the other companies out there in the area. I mean, things have not slowed down.
Yeah.
I find it crazy, just with the numbers on the way things are. It's like people are still buying and selling. like crazy. So
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I feel like with everything the way it is right now, it's like some people. I was talking to a few people these past couple weeks. Some of them are thinking maybe after elections they will resume or not resume at all. And then some of them right now are trying to buy before elections because they're afraid it's gonna get worse,
yeah,
you know? So it's gonna be interesting to see for sure when
definitely.
November comes around. And that's like, man, that's just a few months away. Can you believe that? Like 3 months away, dude.
I don't even want to think about that.
I know. We're
I
not
know
gonna talk.
that's yeah. Let's not talk about that. But yeah,
Yeah, let's not do that. This ain't no politics show. Not yet. I'm just playing. Okay, average price per square foot this week is up 2%. If you can look, kind of up and down, just week over week. It is up just a tiny tad from last month, 0.6%. But this time, this year versus last year, it's higher this year, 4.8% on average for price per square foot. Now, days on the market, pretty steady from the graph. 29 days on average this week for a home to go off the market. Once it hits the market, it takes about 29 days this week at least. Last week was 28 days, so 1 day difference. From last month, it's 28 days this month versus 23 days on average last month. And look at this. Last year, same time, 18 days. That's how fast homes were going last year, same time. This year, yeah, 10 more days. So 28 days, but it's still pretty fast. If once this number goes up higher, 3 to 4 months or so, 6 months even, then everything will start being feeling a little bit more stabilized. Right now, 28 days, that's still fairly fast. Okay. Now, sold price. Oh, look at that. On the upward trend, active price is down this week, 0.8%, and sold price is up 4% from last week. Now, last month, average sold price this month is higher by 2%. And this year, compared to last, average sold price is higher by 6.7%. I care more about the sold price versus the active because if it's not selling, it doesn't really matter, right? So the average sold price right now in Stack County is 634,000. All right, everybody, it's still going up. This year is like going up on average 6%. I mean, just look at the chart, trending up. Like what Charles says, despite rates, despite everything going on right now in today's world, uh, homes are still selling. Prices are still going up slightly on average. Okay. Look at the month's worth of inventory. And then we can start the next topic. And we are at 1.9 months worth of inventory versus 1.7 last month. And then last year, same time, 1.3. So we do have more inventory this year, but it's not enough to shift the market, at least not yet. It needs to be at least 3 to 6 months worth steady for a few months before everybody will start noticing change in the market. Okay. So that's the month's worth of inventory, 1.9. So that means that within 2 months or so, if there's no new homes that hits the market, inventory eventually will eventually run out. Okay, that means people are just gonna keep on bidding for these homes. So eventually we need more inventory. Okay, we're still in the need for more inventory so that way the market's more stable and people don't have to feel like there's so much competition out there. That's the market update, y'all. You got anything to add to that, Charles?
No, I was just interested in interest rates too. I know you're going to go over that next.
I am. I am gonna go over that next. So let me just. There it is. So 30-year fix 6.9, 15 6.3, jumbo loan is 7.0, adjustable rates 7.5, FHAs at 6.3, VAs at 6.3. So it went down a tiny tab. Okay, it went down. It's in the high six now for conventional, and low six for FHA. Not bad, but again, it teeter tots. It goes back and forth. You guys really need to lock in those rates if you guys are in contract right now, because you just never know. Everything could shift. Talk to your lender that you're working with. Make sure that they have a clear idea of when's a good time to lock in.
Put that loan amount in at 5.
What?
Put that loan amount in at 550.
Who?
That loan
Oh,
amount
you
right
meant
there.
this?
Mm-hmm.
But I think this
Yeah.
is based off of 20%. Let me click this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interest rate. Yeah, it's based off of 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So let me adjust. There it is. Based off of 20%, that's your payments. 3,600 for conventional, 3,400 for FHA. But again, that's for 20%. Most people nowadays that are starting off, they're not putting 20%. They're putting the minimum. So 3.5%, 5%, 10. Very, very small few put 20%. Most of the time, those people are like investors. They're buying so that way they can rent it out right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the rates, man. Why, man? You getting ready to pull the trigger soon?
Yeah.
I know the market, right?
Yeah.
All right, Charles, all you, man. What do you want to talk about? You want to share
So
some
I
screen?
mean, no, this is just like a checklist. This is something that you can get from Fannie Mae. This is something that pretty much everybody ignores, right? So I talk about maintenance all the time, constantly talking about maintenance because of what it causes, right? I mean, this is like
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest topics that I bring up in any presentation that I do, because what do I do? I'm a home inspector, right? So
Mhm.
all of the things that you're not maintaining end up causing damage and wear and leaks and rot and all these things, right? So those are all the things that we end up calling out, and those are the things that you end up holding up your transaction when you're trying to sell your house and end up causing you problems and thousands of dollars. So it's important at least twice a year to take a look at some of these maintenance items. And the biggest thing really is just that you do this every single year. You don't want to put it off, because every time you put it off, then things end up happening, and then all of a sudden, your immaculate house that's in great shape is got a lot of costly maintenance things that come up. So um, really, the first thing again, spring, and then also fall maintenance. You can do a lot of this stuff. You don't want to do some of these things like in the middle of the winter, because usually you got a lot of rain and all this other things. But springtime, summer maintenance, here's some of the things that really you should really be looking into. So making sure that water drains away from your house. So that's really the first thing, when you're talking about, damage, and you're talking about like flooding and all that kind of stuff when you get a lot of rain. So that's making sure that your gutters are actually discharging water, that they're not clogged. Because if it's just dumping out of your gutters because they're clogged with debris, then you're going to have water that's draining directly right at your foundation, which, depending on your situation, that's not necessarily going to be good. If you have a sloped foundation, or sloped yard that comes up to your foundation, you got a lot of water that's already going to pool near your foundation and cause damage. So, making sure that water drains away from your house properly, making sure that your downspouts and your gutters are clear, and then if necessary, if you have a property that doesn't have extended or underground drainage, make sure that you put in some kind of extender so that the water drains fully away onto the street into the stormwater system. And then that way you're going to have water that's not going to damage things. Biggest things with gutters is when they're clogged and they're just draining over, or if they're leaking, it's going to cause damage to the wood members on your house. So any of your fascia boards, any of your overhangs and eaves, typically if your gutters are clogged, it's going to cause damage. And not only that, some of these houses, the gutters are so close to the side of the wall that it's going to actually cause water damage to the wall, where it'll actually eventually leak into the wall and cause damage there, mold, all that stuff. So making sure that water drains away. All of these things that were put in place when your home was built, they need to stay intact so that everything stays in good shape. One of the other things too, especially during the winter months, and once it starts to get into the winter months, and even during the summer months, because again, we have all this heat right now, checking to make sure that you don't have any air or water leaks in at your windows or doors, right? So over time, you have seals on your doors, those can get damaged. Your dog ran through the door, chewed up the side, whatever it is, some of those seals that have been put in place fail over time, just with time or just from damage, from use. And so you want to make sure those stay in place, because on those windy days, you get the air that blows in, the draft and everything. So then you got, air loss, and you're paying more to heat your house, and then same thing with these summer months when it's hot, that air just seeps right into those gaps. So you want to make sure you keep that stuff sealed.
So I want to talk to you about gutters, because you mentioned gutters.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard like multiple takes on gutters. You know how some gutters have like those debris shields or leaf shields? I've heard some people say those are bad, worse for your gutters, because when they start going bad, it's even harder to replace. Some people put foams in them, right? So that way to where water can still drain through the foams, but nothing catches on top and there's no debris. What is your take on those?
So there's good ways of preventing debris in your gutter, and there's bad ways. So one of the ways that well, actually, there's a couple of them that are pretty decent. A lot of gutter screens have really large openings, and they're still going to allow soil debris and small particulate to come in there. So if you think of just anything else in your yard, any of the leaves, any of the the pine needles, all that kind of stuff, eventually it all breaks down and it turns into kind of this mushy, kind of a mess, thick. It's almost like a soil, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the larger gutter screens are going to allow that stuff to still come in. And even if it's sitting on top of the gutter screen, that's still maintenance that needs to be done. So the larger gutter screens, they're still going to let that stuff in. It's still going to get into your gutters. It's still going to cause damage. It's still going to cause that blockage, right? So it's still important to clean those. And on the larger ones, then you have to take them off, clean it, and then put them back. So there's another style out there that's been really, really popular over the last, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years at least, is a leaf guard style gutter, which basically the way it works is it's designed to allow the water to smoothly wick over the top of the gutter and into the actual trough where the water runs. And so for the most part, when those are installed properly and everything's done well, those are really good systems. Debris does still get into those. So being hosed out, it's not as often that you have to do it, but maybe every 5 to 10 years, just depending on how much debris you have falling on your roof, you do still need to clean those. What I've noticed is the best for any kind of actual screen is the type of screen that has an extremely fine mesh. And that is going to literally just let the water in and allow that to drain, but it's never going to let any of that thick, heavier soil and all that get in there. And so those are the best as far as screens. But no screen, no roof system, and all that is fine unless you remove the debris from the top of it. Because even with those screens and all these other things in place, if you have debris that's fallen on your roof that's sitting on top of those systems, they're not going to function properly. So even though you don't have to clean the inside of your gutter out, you still need to clean the debris off of your roof, and don't leave it there too long. You know what I mean? The longer you leave it there, the more likely it's going to get more solidified and be more likely to stay in place. And I mean, literally, when it happens, it's a matter of just getting a broom or a rake and pulling it off. Anything that's not going to damage your roof surface. Whether or not it's just a blower on a drier day or even a hose, whatever works. But you got to make sure that you still clean those off. But those are still really good systems. It just matters. It depends on how you use them and how you maintenance. The same thing. It all needs to be maintained.
Okay, fair
Um,
enough.
so one of the other bigger things, and this is again, um, rodents, insects, all these things, they're going to try to get into your home because it's cooler, it's warmer. When it's cold and freezing outside, it's warm in your house because what are we doing? We're creatures of comfort, right? We're going to keep all of
Mhm.
our stuff, at a good temperature. Well, the rodents, the insects, all them, they like all that too, right? So one of the other things, again, and I've said this multiple times too, homes are not really meant to be rodent proof. That's not really how they're designed. They're meant to be water resistant, right? And so when all of these things are done, I mean, it's getting a little better, but for the most part, a lot of builders, they're still not really doing a lot to make sure they seal every little small opening, that a rat or a mouse can squeeze its body into. There might be a small opening that we see that they can get into, but really homes are made to be water resistant. So there's a lot of small little openings on your overhangs, sometimes in the walls. You want to check those to make sure there aren't any new openings that have been made. And then on older homes that have raised foundation, or even some newer homes, you want to make sure that your crawl space for the underside of your house, that those stay intact. You get a cable installer or some kind of service where they come by. They don't care about whether or not rodents are going to get into your house. So
Yeah.
they'll come in and they'll bust a hole in your screen and run a cable through it. And if there's a little opening, they don't really care about that. They want to get the job done, right? So sometimes you got to go behind some of these people and make sure that your penetrations are still sealed, your screens are still sealed. And so those are those same areas that you really want to make sure that you check those. If you need to have new screens installed or rescreen them or put some sealant or whatever it is, prevent those rodents from getting in. And then obviously, if you have damaged screens, you want to make sure, especially during those summer months, the fall and spring months when you have your windows open to allow some of that cool air in. Make sure your screens are intact. Screens, they only last maybe about 5 to 10 years before they really start to break down, especially if you in our climate where it's really hot and sunny. It really breaks down some of these cheaper screen materials pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that those stay intact so that way you can actually still open up your windows and allow that air to come in, but keep the flies and the gnats and the things like that out. So definitely a good thing. And then you know, I know a lot of times people just they store things on the outside of their house. Whether it's a wood pile or just whatever it is. Your kids' toys, things like that. If you haven't messed with it in a while, there's a good chance that there may be some kind of insect or rodent or something like that in there, and they like those spaces because they're dark and they're just you're not moving it; it's just sitting there. So again, if you have those big pool boxes on the side of your house where you got all your pool stuff in it, or just a storage bin for your patio or whatever, pull that back, clean that out, make sure there's nothing back there. If you have a pest control company coming out, make sure that they can get back in there and spray too and all that, and then put your stuff back. That's all just regular cleanup and maintenance. That's not things that anybody else is going to do. So you want to make sure you
Question.
get that kind of stuff done too.
Question. How come like whenever pest control companies go out to a house and spray and they see openings like that, how come they don't just get like a foam bottle and just cover up those holes?
You know, I don't know. I feel like some companies are a little bit more, and that's something that I think Leo could definitely speak to a little bit better. But I think that some pest companies, there's preventative maintenance, and then there's exclusion. So exclusion is preventing anything from coming in. So any rodents, any insects, anything like that. So standard pest control is going to try to keep, because it's usually on the outside. It's going to try to keep whatever that you pest out and can prevent it from coming inside. And so, using traps, in your garage, around any areas where there's, small openings or things that, a lot of people like to leave their garage doors open to vent them and stuff like that, not realizing that that's when, rats and things like that in there. Putting, spraying around the outside, spraying around, the eaves, things like that, removing webs and stuff like that. It's definitely something that can be done. It's just typically an extra service. It's not part of a standard pest control service usually. That's, like I said, that's an exclusion service to prevent animals and insects from getting in. Sealing all that stuff up. I mean, I feel like it could be part of that, but then pest control would also cost a lot more. I think if all of that was being done all at the same time. Preventative things, and I mean, some of that stuff can be done by the homeowner, but if they don't know how to do it, or if they don't know what to do, I mean, it's definitely a service that can be done. And typically, you don't have to do it all the time as long as everything stays intact. Some pest control companies might mention to you, hey, you have some openings here. Would you like us to seal these up for you? We can take care of that for an extra charge. That's another thing. A lot, like I said, a lot of times, but yeah, I think that's the reason. Most likely is just to keep the cost down. Overall, for the most part, pest control is pretty inexpensive,
Yeah.
and especially when you consider that somebody can come out. You're paying about $30 to $50 a month for most companies. So if you have a service, and then you can basically have them come out whenever you want if something comes up. I mean, that's pretty cheap when you think about it. And the chemicals and the service and all that. So
Versus you
for
doing it yourself and buying your own materials and refilling it all the time.
Well, not to mention, you can't even get some of the same chemicals as a homeowner
That's
that a
true.
pest control person could. Yeah, because there's certain chemicals that you can get, that have to be applied properly that a
Gosh,
homeowner
they
just wouldn't
smell
know.
good too, huh? The chemicals.
Some of them do. Yeah, some of them smell like crap. But yeah, it depends. But yeah, I mean, that's really the main reason for that. It's just it's just to keep the cost down. I think is what it really is. So.
That
Um,
makes sense. I just
un-
I just see it all the time, like whenever I order inspection, and then like there's all these holes from like what you said, service
yeah,
contractors that come out and either through want to put wires to the crawl space or anything like that. They just leave that opening there, and it's enough opening for like rat or even some cats to go in.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
just
And
hate
then
seeing that.
Yeah, and then if you have a crawl space, and then you have people that are going under to do work or repairs, and then they don't put your cover back properly, or they're in your crawl space and they leave openings into the house from underneath. It's just all the things that other people don't care about that you do. But that's why it's nice to have conscientious service people that are actually going to take care of your house, and not just get the job done. That's the unfortunate thing, is it's a little bit harder nowadays to find that. But
Some
at the
people
same
just there to
time,
do a checklist. They're not going
yeah,
beyond. Yeah.
but at the same time, it's also nice to have, but people don't know this, but it's also nice to have, good openings and good areas in your crawl space. I mean, a lot of crawl spaces are really difficult to get around. You got to think about that kind of thing when you buy a house. Does your home have ductwork underneath? That is like the worst thing ever. I mean, unless you have a house that's pretty high up, like maybe you live on a slope or something, and you can still gain pretty well access. But for example, if you live in like Carmichael, which is an area here in Sacramento, a lot of those homes, for some reason, they built the homes with ductwork underneath the house, and then these aren't like huge crawl spaces. I mean, these are crawl spaces that are a foot and a half tall, and then you have ductworks that's like half or almost or double the size of
Yep.
that, and they're just
And now
shoved in
it's
there, and
touching
it's
the ground.
yeah, and you literally have to like navigate all around to get to them. And you figure, okay, well, you don't really have to get into these places very much to do things. And you figure when the house was built, okay, big deal. You don't have to worry about that. But nobody really thinks about like the future and then what's going to have to happen in order to fix that bathroom leak and all that other stuff. It's just kind of crazy how some of that stuff is. But you know, it's not something that most people think about when they buy a house. Um, because they're just like, well, I love the house, I love the inside, I love everything that's been done. But you got to think about, if you're ever planning on doing any upgrades or thinking about what may happen in the future, it's how costly it may be because of the difficulty of getting to these places. But
I
it's like
think
buying a slab home.
I think those homes that you're talking about in Carmichael, I think it's because when they initially built those homes from like the 80s or whatever, they never had traditional duct system. They had a furnace or a swamp cooler, and then owners after that, generations down the line, decided to add HVAC, and the best place to put it was in the crawl space. So then when they do that now, it messes with people like people like your job routine, because now you're being blocked while you're down there inspecting. You think that's true? Like
Some
it
of it
gets
is.
upgraded afterwards, because the
Some of
home.
it is. Yeah, some
Yeah,
of it is. Some of it, it's the ones that are built in the 50s, the 60s. And not only do they not have flexible ducts, because back then that wasn't a standard, they
right.
have a sheet metal ducts that are insulated with, like a fiberglass insulation that's just wrapped on there. And so those are, you can't move those. You can't like crawl under that and shift it around. They're solid, they're stuck in their place. And then what happens is trades will come in and they'll crawl over it. Again, you have cable installers, you have plumbers, people that are going to go under there to do a repair, whatever it is, and then they'll like crawl over the top of it and bend the heck out of it, or they'll crawl under it and bend it, or they'll do whatever they have to because they don't care. They're just trying to get the job done once again. And so then you end up with air leaks and possible, again, intrusion from sources underneath your house, which isn't always good. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. It's just part of the deal. Something to maybe think about when you're buying a home, and thinking, especially when you're buying an older home that hasn't been upgraded. It's much more likely that you're going to need to do repairs underneath that home, if it's a raised foundation. And so you really want to think about that. Okay, well, what do I have in the future? Like, look into those items also. A lot of home inspectors will add pictures, or they'll talk about what's going on underneath the house. So ask more questions about that and just be aware of what you have to think about. And then that's not on this typical maintenance list that I talk about, but since we're talking about crawl spaces, that's another thing. Every now and then you want to have somebody, whether or not it's a termite company or a pest control or a home inspector like myself, you want to have somebody go under there and actually like just verify that you don't have any leaks and that you don't have any problems, especially a raised foundation, termites. At least a termite inspector. Have a termite inspector go on down there. Make sure you don't have any termites causing damage, and then make sure there aren't any leaks underneath your bathrooms and all that, because again, that stuff can cost a lot more money down the line if the damage is allowed to occur to last longer. So if you have a leak that just it's a month old, the chances are it's not going to damage that wood. But if it's years old, you got rot all over the place, and now you're talking about the structure and whether or not the floor is going to cave in and all that kind of stuff. So
I
definitely a good
got
idea to
something to
have
show
somebody look
you.
at
I got something to show you. I want to get your input on it.
that. Okay.
Okay. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So this is from a window. And as
Looks like a kitchen, maybe.
it's a kitchen. It's a kitchen
Mm-hmm.
window. It's right, the sink sits right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a window.
It's like
What
a
do you think
aluminum dual
happened here?
pane. It looks like either the window failed, the seal on the window failed as far as the flashing on the outside, or if it looks like it's aluminum dual pane, it looks like maybe water may have been coming in, and then this was probably covered with tile and or some other kind of material, and so water was seeping in there and just unknown, because the whatever the material was right up against that window. It looks like to me. and it was probably leaking in behind there for a while and then just rotting the wood away. Obviously, the mold and all that.
Yeah, this when I first saw it, I was like, "How the heck did this happen? Was there a rat in there eating all this, right?" But yeah, you're right. You're 100% accurate. From what happened, I guess when he was changing up the tile countertops, he
Hmm.
took it apart. He noticed all of this because there was tiles on these walls,
Yep.
backsplash right here, going all the way to the flat part right here. And when he took it all apart, everything here was just wet.
Hmm.
And this home hasn't been updated in over 10 years,
Hmm.
maybe even longer. But the people that lived here neglected this. Because you know how sometimes whenever you wash dishes or even if there's water intrusions coming in, people don't really wipe it down. They just kind of let it sit
Yeah.
and that eats into the grout. And eventually
Well,
more water sits and it just goes under because underneath it
and
is just wood. So that's what
yeah, and
happened here.
that's something that people need to understand. You know, the only grout is not waterproof, right? So
Yeah.
it's not at all. So when you have a bathroom that has tile installed, whether or not it's on the wall or whether or not it's on the base of the shower, there's a waterproofing measure that's behind that that's meant to help wick that water into the drainage system and to not cause any damage. It's not waterproof at all. So any of this tile that's installed in your kitchen countertops, on your bathroom countertops or any of that stuff is not waterproofed at all. They don't put waterproofing measures behind, any of that kitchen tile or any of that other kind of stuff. That's not a standard practice. So, if you see something like that, that's from years of water intrusion or leakage. That's not like a short term thing. That's been going on for a really long time, and a lot of times around windows too. You know, the drywall is pushed right up against the edge of that window. If you have tile and something real nice around that, again, you're not seeing what's going on behind that. And if your windows, that's why it's also nice, to have, like somebody come in with a thermal imaging tool, camera, so that they can actually see during these winter months if there's any moisture that's coming in, or even if you have somebody do some kind of a water test, just with a hose, even on a summer month, come in and spray the window down with a hose and check to see if there's any water intrusion. A lot of times that can be detected with a thermal imaging camera, which will help prevent some of that kind of damage from happening. These older windows, again, about 15 to 20 years old, especially the aluminum ones, and the older they are, they're really highly likely leaking. It may not be a significant amount, but they definitely do leak. And then what happens is, it's the way that those aluminum windows are designed. There is just a small seam on the edge of those where water comes in. And so what'll end up happening is water will start to seep into those, and that'll cause water intrusion there. So, and then especially when you have drywall that's covering those areas up pretty well, you start to get mold behind there, and you just really don't know what's going on until for some reason you have to do some repair, or it's gotten so bad that it's actually caused a lot more water to come in, and then it's starting to show itself now. So it's definitely important to make sure you're checking for that, especially on older windows. So one of the other things, again, on the maintenance list, is cleaning your dryer vent. I feel like no one ever cleans their dryer vent, and I just had a picture that showed up the other day on my Facebook page. I should have brought it up, but this dryer vent, I mean, typically your dryer vents are about 3 to 4 inches, just really similar to just any kind of ventilation that goes out of the house. And this dryer vent was so impacted that the whole size itself was probably about the size of maybe a half dollar. And so that 3 inch, 4 inch hole turned into like a 1 inch hole. And so it blocked so much of the air movement by that lint that it prevented a lot of that air from discharging properly, right? So in the end, you have concerns about fire because you're basically taking all that lint and you're blowing moisture laden and hot air from it all the time. and then as your dryer, all your clothes actually dry out, now you just have hot air that's being blown out of that, and so that's a huge fire risk. So definitely important to have that done, and don't do that like every 10 years. Do that every couple of years or every year, depending on how many clothes you wash. You want to have that done fairly often. Same thing with when we were talking about the gutters before. Check your roof's condition. Again, if this isn't something that you can do, then have a roofer come out or have another inspector come out and check your roof to make sure that nothing has, especially if you have a tile roof, because what happens is those concrete tiles, those will break and they'll crack and they'll slip down and then they'll allow water to come in and start to damage that underlayment. The underlayment is actually what prevents the water from coming into your home on a tile roof. Tile roof, the tile isn't actually the waterproofing measure. Again, we talked about these porous materials. Water is going to come in and seep through those, but it's the underlayment underneath that actually is your waterproofing measure underneath your tile roof. So what happens is if those tiles crack or they slip and you have a gap in that now that tile isn't protecting that underlayment from heavy rain. It's not protecting it from the sun exposure, and eventually it'll wear right through that underlayment, and then you'll just have exposed wood, which will then rot or allow water to come in. So have somebody check your roof out again at least once a year. Just a quick inspection, even if it's somebody that's coming by with a drone, or just a quick ladder inspection. Making sure that there's no concerns or issues with it. All of these things are going to save you so much money, and that's the idea. You never want to have these things last a long time, because eventually they're going to cost a lot of money. That's the whole point about these maintenance tips, is that small things that are just a couple of $100 or that maybe take you an hour to do, if left, are going to cost you thousands of dollars later in damage to repair, whether or not it's mold. And mold is huge. That's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, right? If you have a serious mold incident, it's not something that's inexpensive. I mean, you end up having to rip out so many things and repair so many things to remediate mold. It's a very expensive project to have to take on, and just dry rotting in and of itself can be pretty expensive too, but it's not as bad. But all of these maintenance tips that I'm giving you now, these are all things that are going to save you money in the end. So it's always important to make sure that you're doing these maintenance things on a regular basis. One of the other things, again, too, is also checking for sealing, sagging or damaged or cracked paint, and sealant also. This is also, again, going to prevent water from coming in. It's going to protect your wood from the sun and also the rain. And it's very important to do all of these exterior things, again, to prevent water from coming in and causing damage.
Did you see this comment from Saw?
I did not.
If water comes in, you better get flood insurance. Saw, where I live right now, Natomas, it's required that if you have a mortgage on the house, that you have flood insurance, or else they won't even give you the loan to buy the house. Some areas near dams and all that, or areas that had historical floods, it's required to have flood insurance. But I don't know. We live in California, and I don't think it's necessary to have a flood, because I think, if I remember correctly, a flood insurance policy only covers if the house actually gets flooded on the outside or so. On the inside, if let's say you have a water heater or anything that's busted inside, you can still file a claim towards home insurance because your house got flooded by the water that was leaking from the water heater. Because I've had clients that's done that before. I don't think you necessarily need a flood insurance just for things like that,
We would probably want to consult with our buddy Chris to find out for sure about that. But I will most likely say, to confirm, that flood insurance, same thing. Earthquake insurance is literally for earthquakes. Flood insurance is literally for floods. So if you have a pipe burst on the outside, and a large amount of water comes into to the side of your house because a pipe burst on the outside of your house, that's not necessarily considered a flood as far as insurance goes, I don't believe. Flood is a natural disaster where literally water there's a natural disaster that's caused flooding in your area, so that the entire like even if just you're at the like you're at the bottom of your hill on the street, and the whole bottom of that street flooded because of the rain, because of a dam break or something of that nature, that would be considered a flood thing. I love the fact that they were like, "Oh, just throw a tarp on your roof; that'll take care of it."
You're
Their
right
water.
here.
That is so funny. Oh
I
my
see
goodness!
it, dude. Sometimes I see
All the
tarps and I'm
time,
like, oh,
all the
they're
time.
saving money for a new roof.
Yeah, they got a roof leak. There's something going on. They got the bricks and the tarp up there, man. And then they're like, "Oh, yeah, it's windy. It's a windstorm. We got to get this tarp up there." But hey, you know what? In desperate times, you got to do what you got to do to prevent that water from
Yeah.
coming in. So. But I
I
think the
gotta,
problem is that some people leave it for too long.
yeah.
They leave it
It's
up
kind
during
of
the
like it's
summer
kind of
and
like
everything
Christmas
else.
lights. It's kind of
Yeah,
like Christmas
you know.
lights, right? People leave it on. It's like it's actually summer now, and like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just kind of like that. I got another picture I want to get your opinion on. You're gonna love this. Okay, what do you think that is?
The hole.
Yeah, this.
That looks like a drain for a tub and a trap.
Yeah. What do you think happened just by looking at it?
Well, the thing I'm wondering about, and I don't know if I'm looking at it wrong or something, but I don't understand why the drain is so high up. Um, I mean, maybe that hole's deeper than I think it is, but it looks like um, it looks like maybe that was deeper, but it looks like maybe the drain where that's all connected with the trap and everything that was underneath that concrete area broke off, and then they maybe pulled it up to show that it broke off, and it was leaking underneath the tub the whole time because it cracked and broke. And you can tell that the drain on the tub had been leaking for a long time, because if you look at that way at the top of the screen, if you look at that, that's what actually connects to the bottom of the tub, and you can see the seals on the bottom. That thing's got all kinds of corrosion all over it, so it's been
This?
leaking for a while. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's evidence of a long time previous leakage underneath the tub. The seal
Yeah.
had failed.
So this tub right here, when they were remodeling and they removed the tub, they noticed the underneath the tub was just drenched with water and it wasn't dry at all. And yeah, you're right. This piece right here, whoever installed it last, or maybe it was just because it was weakened. 'Cause it's one of those tubs that are like fiberglass or so it flexes when it gets
Yeah,
older. So I
yeah.
think what happened was it flexed so much they just didn't do anything about it, but they just kept using it, and it damaged this and it cracked, and it was leaking for probably years.
Yeah. And this is the
So
thing with slabs, it's hard to see that.
uh-huh.
That's the thing that I do prefer about raised foundation homes, is
Yep.
that you can see all of your plumbing. Like, it's all accessible, it's all visible, you can see what's going on, and it's less likely to be damaged by shifting. So this is the thing you got to think about too. These pipes are probably the most fragile, or the most susceptible to damage, right where they're glued to another joint. And then that's typically where you're going to have a problem, and that's because they're the most fragile there, because if there's any movement in those areas, that's most likely where it's going to break. So ABS and PVC pipes, which is pretty much the standard around the country for drainage nowadays, they're super resilient, and they're good long lasting pipes. But yeah, they're not, when there's movement and a lot of just like flexing and whatnot. There's definitely some damage at joints that can occur. It's pretty often that's where we see leaks at some of these drains, is at the joints, because again, that's where they're the most fragile. And you got to think about it; they're constantly being heated and cooled and heating and cooled, because you're running hot water, then you're running cold water, then you're running hot water. And so again, just like anything else, it doesn't last forever. You're going to have some damage. And again, with a slab house, there's no way to know. There's really no way to know, unless you have something that's showing. Just like I was mentioning about the windows earlier, you know, some of these leaks aren't going to present themselves unless you have something around the area to show. So, for example, right outside the wall, if there's water if it's so bad that it's seeping through, you might see some water or some mold showing up on the baseboard right behind the tub, or you might see some water or some damage right next to the tub where it meets. Like you can see right here where they had the slab, they actually had it down a little bit, where the tub, the side of the tub was there at the base. So it's definitely something that can happen. And unfortunately, yeah, there's really no way to know about this with a slab home. They have pipes that'll break underneath the ground as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the only way you know is because you start to smell like, why does it smell like sewage in my living room or in my hallway? And it's because there's a damaged drainage pipe directly underneath the slab in that area, and it's starting to seep through the concrete.
Yep.
You can smell it.
Yep. Yeah, so that's one thing too, that why I don't like slabs. Yes, they're nicer when you're walking. You don't hear echoes everywhere in every edge of the corner of the house, but it's hard to find these things because with the cross space, you can just go underneath there, have a yearly inspector go in there and inspect your whole house, and if they see leaks, you can just address it right away. Most of the time, you do need to
Yeah.
take stuff apart. It's just a piece of 2x6 or a piece of plywood, that's between the flooring and all of that. So
That's another problem too, because drainage is one thing, but supply lines are even worse, or gas lines are even worse. So
yeah,
there's a lot of times what'll happen, what's called a slab leak. And so again, if you have a hot water supply or a cold water supply that's damaged underneath your slab, and then it's basically leaking, you don't know. You have no idea. All of a sudden, you're like, why is my gas bill so high? It's because your hot water is constantly it's drained out because of a leak in a pipe underneath your home. And again, this doesn't present itself unless you start to have, and it's the funniest thing, when you have a slab leak, when you notice it, it's when you walk on the floor and it's hot right there. You're like, I got in-ground floor heating now?
yeah.
Floor heating?
Only in this spot. Only in this
Yeah.
spot.
And that's a lot of times how people find out. Or their water heater's constantly running, and they're like, why is my water heater constantly running? And it depends on how bad the leak is, because if it's really bad, then it starts to actually show up on the foundation on the outside of your home, or it actually starts to flood, especially if you're in an area where the soil is already pretty wet or saturated. It starts to flood the outside of your house. Like it actually starts to show up water on the outside of your house. So water bills will get high, gas bills will get high because your water heater is running constantly. But those are all things that can happen in a slab foundation home with piping, and you have no idea really until it's too late, right? And then you have to rip up your slab, rerun piping, all this crazy stuff. So it's a lot.
She goes, try flex tape. It's waterproof. Just slap it on like the commercial says.
Yeah. Flex tape and that flex seal. That stuff does work really good. That flex seal, you spray on stuff, that stuff does work
Yeah,
really well.
that
But
stuff works pretty well. Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Poo-poo
recommend it as a
snow is
permanent
fine.
repair though.
Number two, don't like. Yeah, if your pipe is bursted, like what that picture shows, you're gonna eventually get some sort of smell. It's gonna be like mildew smell, mold
Yeah.
smell, or poo-poo.
Or
For
poo
sure.
poo, yeah. It's gonna smell.
Okay, let's go. Let's go to the next topic. I want to talk about this real quick. I want to see if everybody agrees. So Sacramento Bee did a article about what are the best cities in California for first-time home buyers, right? And according to this, Sacramento area is home to two of the top cities in California for first-time home buyers, according to Wallet Hub. Roseville being ranked number 30 with a total score of 58 out of 100. Okay. The city was number 131 in terms of affordability. Yeah, that's number 56 in real estate, number 46 in quality of life. Okay. And this is where Roseville's at. Roseville
That's
is nice.
interesting. That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
I would think that the quality of life aspect would be a little higher. Definitely in terms of affordability, it's very expensive. But I'm a little surprised about that. But I'm interested to see where some of the other cities are.
Well, the other one is Al Grove. So Al Grove is second best city in California for first-time home buyers. Landing at number 56. The score was 56.44. It ranked number 125 in affordability. Yeah, Al Grove is super high.
Yeah.
Number 111 in real estate, and number 50 in quality of life.
Well, see, and that's the thing that's crazy about that, because I remember back in the early '90s, you know, when Elk Grove just wasn't really there. Roseville's been around for a long time, at
Right.
least the older part of Roseville. And there's some older parts of Elk Grove too, but the parts on the 5 side and even so on some of the stuff on the 99 side, that city, the big parts of that city weren't even there in the '90s and in the '80s, right? A lot of that stuff was start to build later. So the really crazy stuff where it's like super saturated down there, because you can live in Elk Grove and not have to go anywhere else. Like that's how good it is down there now, to where everything's built up. They have
Yep.
so much down there. They have everything you need
The
that's in that vicinity,
casino.
right? Yeah, they got everything. So basically, when you're down there, it's like you don't need to go up to SAC or anything else to do anything. But back in the '90s, the early '90s and the '80s, late '80s, there wasn't any of that stuff down there. You could get to houses; it was just a lot more sparse. But yeah,
I
it's
like
like
how
it's a big booming area now. There's a lot of houses, new houses, and it's expensive.
there is. I just like how they worded it, right? They said that these are the best places in California, best cities for first-time home buyers. And for me, whenever I think of first-time home buyers, like what I mentioned earlier, right? A lot of first-time home buyers aren't planning on using 20% down. They're planning on putting the minimum, which is 3.5%, 5%, 10% at the most. And man, like Elk
Those are
Grove
like
and
two of the
Roseville
most
are so
expensive places.
expensive.
They're
Yeah, those are
two of the most
expensive
expensive.
areas.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
I ain't gonna
it's
lie,
interesting.
but then when they want to live in these areas and they see the price point and they're like, "What? Never mind. I'll settle for Antelope. I'll settle for Citrus Heights. I'll settle for Alberta, Rio Linda, Fair Oaks, or Carmichael, just so I could be close to Roseville, but not pay the price of Roseville." And then
Yeah.
again, Elk Grove. I want to live in Elk Grove, but I can't afford Elk Grove, so I'll settle for Vineyard. I'll settle for Florin. I'll settle for Lemon Hill, etc. Rancho Cordova. That's what I see a lot because the affordability is just, yeah. See, like what she says there, California's just expensive. Gavin Newsom don't plan to make it cheaper anytime soon. Okay, well, we're not going to talk about politics in here. but yeah, so like Cali is expensive, and Elk Grove, I just find that very, again, nothing against Roseville or Elk Grove. They're nice, but they're also expensive, right? And a lot of first-time home buyers I know that I work with that wants to live in Elk Grove ends up living in Sacramento instead, so that way they could be near Elk Grove and still be able to afford their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So this is
So
interesting.
does it have like a listing of what some of the number one? Like I'm
Uh
curious.
well, let me continue down. The third is Clovis, and I think this is by Fresno over there. Yeah. Clovis is ranked number 3, or the top 3 in Cali at least. Number 142 in real estate, number 31 in quality of life. 31. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. It says 300 cities, 300 US cities.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is funny to me because, well, I mean, I suppose it's relative, right? So if you live in Tennessee and your prices are significantly lower, so is the income over there. So I guess when you're looking at it, even though somebody from California might be like, oh well, I can buy a 3,000 square foot house over there for 250 grand, and I can't even touch that for 5 or 6 over here. But the cost of but the income down there is less. So if you live in
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee and maybe your income, you work at a local spot down there, the income to pay isn't going to be as high as it is here. So I guess that when you're looking at it that way, relative, it's still the same. But that's interesting.
She's like, after you see the price point, you just start thinking about camper vans for real. Van life is definitely up right now because of this. I'm in an
Hmm.
RV group, and you get so many people from California saying, "I just sold my house and went full time RVing." Like you
You
see,
know,
so
I was talking. I was. It was actually. It was. I was talking to. It was our client the other day, he was mentioning that at some point that's one of the things that they did. They just got a nice big RV and they just lived in that for a while. That was, and I mean, like, I would, if there was a situation. I mean, RVs are nice, especially if you got a nice one. I would
Yeah.
do that if it was a situation that saved thousands of dollars. I mean, you live in a nice place, nice park, and you're in a good area. I mean, if you had to, it's not
There's
like because
nothing
people
wrong with
think,
that. It's just
nah,
some people are willing to compromise their lifestyle and their yard and all of that and just be condensed to just an RV space. I don't mind doing that either because it's all about minimalism, right? And as long as I have
man,
all my other things, I'm willing to do that. But not everybody's willing to compromise yet. So that's why
yeah,
people don't do it. Uh, that's why you gotta cash your house when you move to those cheap states. That's what a lot of people are doing. Honestly,
hmm,
they can't afford it in Cali. They sell their house, take the equity to go to a better state that's more affordable to their family. Okay, you want
yeah.
to see this, man? You want to see the top cities for first-time home buyers? Here it is.
Interesting, interesting.
Palm
Those
Bay,
Arizona
Florida.
homes don't surprise me though. The Arizona homes don't surprise me. That was a big and up and coming out there, and the pricing was still pretty cheap, and the income was pretty decent out there too.
Yep.
So that makes sense. Florida kind of surprises me though, especially because and those areas might not be as in bad hurricane areas, but I would any of those areas where there's hurricanes all the time, I'd be a little concerned.
I was just gonna say we spoke to a few people that move over here. I think it was Cape Coral. They said that in that area, it doesn't really like get that crazy as far as tornadoes and
Yeah.
hurricane goes.
Yeah, and you can't just say all of Florida is like that.
Yeah,
I
you
definitely know
can't.
that some of the areas
Yeah.
the western part, in the upper western part, definitely they don't get as much. It's more of the coastal or further down towards the south part of Florida that I've
So
seen.
I can't vouch for any of this because I don't work in these areas. But man, if some of you Florida,
That's
Arizona,
like
or
six.
Boise, Idaho people could confirm these are like the best areas to be in right now for a first time home buyer, man, comment below. I am curious to hear your thoughts.
That's crazy though, but that's six cities that are in Arizona. Six of them
Yeah,
are in, or I'm sorry, in Florida. That's
Florida,
crazy.
and Arizona, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy,
I'm
right?
surprised. I'm surprised they didn't put the Florida after Orlando, but that's funny. I'm moving.
Yeah, he's like, I'm moving. Where you moving to, Chang?
Moving to Orlando. Got Disney out
Minimalist
there,
at
all kinds of stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
The Native Americans live in tipis out in the wild, yet we Americans complain and want to live in a house. we've been, like our upbringing, we've been brainwashed, growing up. That's all we know is get a good job and then use that
Get a
money
big
to put in the nest.
house.
Yeah, get a big house, let your, lay your nest egg and get a family. So it's just a way. He's like near Disneyland, South Florida.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna go over there with Chai, huh? We got a buddy in Florida that has a bunch of Airbnbs, like right next to Disneyland, Disney World.
I'll be making good money on those too.
Yeah, he's doing good. He's doing good. Oh, yep. Go next to Chai. So that's it. Like these are the top cities that they recommended for first time home buyers. And, you know, in California, El Grove and Roseville and Clovis is the top three in Cali. Not
104.
from the 300 cities, but in Cali.
Go back up to Roseville again. So it says 131 in terms of affordability. Okay, and 56 in real estate and 46 in quality. Okay, go back to Elk Grove. Okay, so yeah, 125 in affordability, 111 in real estate, 50 in quality. Okay, yeah. I mean, you got to think if we're talking about quality of life. I mean, like I said, I'm wondering what I mean, unless it's they're talking about because what's the quality of life? If they're talking about just
Good
like what is it
schools,
considered?
convenient, Crime rates are low. Those are normally the top threes that people factor in for quality of life.
That's crazy though, because I mean, like Rockland has amazing schools, and their police, crime rates are down over there. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I'm interested to know what a lot of these. There's a story behind that. I know there's a story behind that. We got to know the story.
But we're gonna save that story for next time. We are a little bit over. I just want to honor everybody's time. Thanks for all the comments and questions for this live stream. But we're gonna end the show right here, and then we will see you guys next time. Okay. Again, if you're in Cali, Clovis, El Grove, Roseville, those are the top cities for first-time home buyers according to what was it?
Wallet Hub. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, there you go. First time home buyers. If you guys have any questions, if you guys know anybody looking to buy or sell, hit your boy up. If you guys know anybody that's looking for a home inspection, hit Charles up. All right, you guys know where to reach us. But other than that, peace out. Take care, everyone. Happy Thursday.